Hello, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Pamela Thompson. I am the Director of Teaching and Learning here at Neighborhood Villages, and it is my absolute pleasure to be here to go through an introductory webinar to our Learning Through Exploration, a play-based toddler curriculum with all of you. Let's get started. Who are we? Neighborhood Villages is a Boston-based change systems nonprofit. As you can see, we serve young children 0 to 5 and their families, and we envision a transformed, equitable early childhood education system that works for everybody, lifts educators, and sets every child and family up to thrive. You can learn more about us at our website, www.neighborhoodvillages.org. And so today in our introductory webinar, we're going to be talking about some of the components of the curriculum, Learning Through Exploration. And the first thing that we're going to discuss is the guiding documents, which can be found when you download. So speaking of which, I will ask my colleague to please launch our one and only poll for today. We would love to hear how many of you have already downloaded this wonderful curriculum and how many of you have not done so as of yet. Thank you. Fabulous. Thank you all so much. All right. Oh, so wonderful to see that about 45% of you have downloaded it and about just over 50% of you have not. So I would encourage you to do so today as we finish. Let's continue so that we can get through some of these highlights. So the first thing that you will find in our curriculum when you do download it, you will find this opening document, which is an overview of Learning Through Exploration. We're going to talk through some of the other pieces that you will find within the guiding document, as well as some of the elements you will find in the rest of the curriculum documents. So to begin, I'd like to share with you some of our guiding principles for our work co-creating with educators, as you heard in the video, this curriculum, the documents that came out of it, as well as the intentionality behind it. So first and foremost, children need supportive and responsive relationships in order to thrive, and they deserve to be visible and valued. It's extremely important that relationships are at the core of teaching and learning. The relationship between children and teachers, children and children, and between teachers and teachers, as well as teachers and children with the curriculum. These relationships are responsive and reflective to the unique perspectives, lived experiences, and individual strengths of the community in which this is being used. Children construct meaningful knowledge through robust interaction, high engagement, and a sense of agency. Agency, as you know, is the power, capacity, and the resources to fulfill one's potential. In this curriculum, choice is a key to activating powerful learning, developing the capacity of executive functioning, and acquiring resourceful self-awareness. Children experience, process, and interact with the world in unique ways. We know that children thrive when teachers are researchers in their classrooms. Teacher researchers are genuinely curious about the children and families in their classroom and continuously reflect on their practice. Learning Through Exploration intentionally does not recommend a particular scope and sequence to the explorations. It is flexible, and we will talk a little bit more about that later. Children deserve to be recognized as experienced and capable agents of their own learning. All children are capable. All children are capable of complex, higher order thinking. This belief is essential to ensuring equity for children and families, and Learning Through Exploration incorporates a culturally and linguistically, sustaining lens that empowers teachers to maintain high expectations when making appropriate adjustments to meet the diverse needs of every learner. children learn through play. As you heard in the video, all play is learning, and all learning should be play. And finally, anti-bias principles are woven throughout the curriculum. Our guiding principle about anti-bias principles demonstrates itself throughout the curriculum through the anti-bias goals, which you can find more information about at the website listed here, antibiasleadersece.com. These are 4 goals identified as big buckets of where children can learn and grow and demonstrate in their everyday interactions with each other and with the community around them. Goal 1 is identity, goal 2, diversity, goal 3, justice, and goal 4, action. And some people might ask, how do you see these with toddlers? In our curriculum, we demonstrate exactly how that can be seen, as well as provide opportunities for educators to think about other ways that these could happen and children can learn and demonstrate these 4 anti-bias goals. As mentioned, one of our other guiding principles is that children learn through play. As we were developing this curriculum, we had a working group of educators and as well as another group of people that we called critical friends, who really gave us a different perspective on things that we were discussing and the documents that ultimately became Learning Through Exploration. This is our playful learning indicators, how children are showing playful learning. You'll see here in pink, autonomy, what that looks like and what it might feel like in the classroom. You see curiosity, again, what that might look like and feel like in the classroom, as well as joy, what that might look like and feel like in the classroom. And then you will also notice that it is wrapped in this yellow band, which happens in community. None of this happens isolated in one instance. It really happens fully wrapped in the community that children are. These are woven throughout the curriculum and can be seen on multiple documents. The other thing that I'd like to share with you today is some of the teaching practices that Learning Through Exploration highlights as ways to facilitate this curriculum. Exploration, for short, teaching practices are tangible quality moves that teachers make to implement the curriculum effectively, efficiently, and elegantly. In coordination with Boston Public Schools, Learning Through Exploration is dedicated to these practices. Discourse, facilitation, and feedback. Toddlers learn best when we have significant relationships, as I spoke about earlier. Discourse occurs when teachers respond with interest to what children are doing. Open-ended questions are used to facilitate deeper engagement with materials, and activities and materials are chosen with the understanding that children have very different skill sets and prior experiences that they bring to these explorations, as well as modeling can be used when necessary to facilitate more complex involvement with materials and experiences. Experiential learning across disciplines. This curriculum is based on a whole child approach, recognizing that long-term development and success are dependent on access to supportive, nurturing environments that emphasize curiosity and a love of learning. Distinct from curricula that has been focused on preschoolers and kindergartners, this curriculum is not organized by centers or areas, but rather by learning experiences that integrate multiple domains of learning. Keeping in mind the unique developmental needs of toddlers, this particular structure allows maximum potential to integrate learning across multiple domains. We encourage addressing variants of development, processes, and perspectives. Learning experiences in Learning Through Exploration are open-ended and flexible, with multiple access points to meet the variability of interests, strengths, and challenges of children. Active agency and autonomy. In exploration, children actively explore their world through open-ended learning experiences with the teacher as an active facilitator of guided play. Each learning experience plan includes guiding questions and adjustments to reference, support, and inspire teacher facilitation. And finally, documentation of teaching and learning. When educators are researchers in their classrooms, they approach teaching with curiosity, observe and document children's learning daily, and reflect on this documentation to guide next steps in the curriculum. And we'll talk a little bit more about documentation later. In Learning Through Exploration, a play-based toddler curriculum, there are five big buckets that teachers and children engage in exploring together. They are all about us, how things move, our bodies, nature all around us, and playing with materials. As you heard me mention earlier, these five explorations are not followed in a specific sequence. They are meant to be flexible, to be responsive to the needs and interests of children in the classroom. There are multiple components within those five explorations. You will see here that we have used an image of a tree because we believe that educators are at the root and heart of this curriculum. Without them, it does not work. And so we have made them the trunk of the tree of which these aspects come to life. And those are outdoor play, welcoming, learning experiences, reflection, read aloud, group gatherings, and reunion. So let's talk a little bit more about learning experiences. Within each of the five explorations, there are approximately, depending on the exploration, about 15 to 20 learning experiences that are a guide or a plan for educators to use as they put these out in their classrooms. So I'm going to run through some of the, highlight some of the pieces of each learning experience for you now. First and foremost, you will see associated literature. At the top of every learning experience, it is an image of the read aloud book that corresponds with this learning experience. You will find a set of big questions. What are the really big things that educators and children are exploring together in this particular exploration? This learning experience, MUD, comes from our Nature All Around Us exploration, and there are four big questions for nature all around us. You will also find the anti-bias goals that this particular learning experience supports children in learning and implementing. For this learning experience, it's goal 1, identity, and goal 4, action. And just below those two, we have provided ways in which educators may see children engaging and demonstrating those two goals. You will also find intentions for playful learning. These are statements that go back to the playful learning indicators that I showed you just a few minutes ago that are wrapped in that yellow band of community. Then towards the bottom, you will find invitations or an invitation. Most of the learning experiences have more than one invitation. And what we mean by invitation, another word for that could be provocation, things that teachers are setting out for children to engage in. On the back of the learning experience, it is double-sided on purpose so that teachers can pull it out, use it, and put it back in. You will find facilitation questions, open-ended questions to ask children as you are engaged with them in this learning experience. You will find family engagement ideas, welcoming and reunion, an invitation for them to participate in the learning in the classroom, as well as questions for them to ask at home to extend the learning. You will also find vocabulary to incorporate These vocabulary words come specifically from that piece of literature that's highlighted on the front of the learning experience. You will also find reflection questions that are questions to ask children at a later time during the day, perhaps at meal or after rest time. These allow children to recall and reflect on what they had done earlier in the day or even days prior. And finally, I'd like to highlight the connections to the Massachusetts Early Education and Care Guidelines for Infants and Toddlers. As we are based in Massachusetts, we provided these for educators to be able to say, okay, I did the mud exploration with learning exploration with my classroom. What was it that they were actually learning there? And so we've connected these for educators so that they have the opportunity to quickly be able to use this in their assessment when they get to progress reports or assessment time. Another piece that I'd like to highlight that you will find throughout the curriculum for each exploration is a read aloud opportunity card, or an RAOC. Try saying that 5 times fast. Each read aloud opportunity card, again, links to each individual piece of literature that is recommended for each exploration. There is an icon there on the right-hand side that tells you which exploration you are reading from. And then it has, on the left-hand side, key vocabulary in that book that you may want to highlight for children as you read, as well as ideas for explaining those to toddlers who may be 2.9 or 3. On the right-hand side, you will find anti-bias and sociocultural considerations, opportunities that you might want to implore while you're in your read aloud, as well as some questions that you may want to ask also during that read aloud. The other piece that we intentionally provide for you in the guiding documents is an implementation tool. This tool is meant to be used by educators and administrators so that you can see how are we implementing this curriculum and where are the areas that we can work a little bit more on. We intentionally connected it to the components of the curriculum so that you can focus on one at a time, or you can focus on all of them in an observation. Perhaps the supervisor comes in and runs the implementation tool as a way of having a conversation with an educator who is using this curriculum. The other piece that you will find in the guiding documents is what we call a learning experience reflection tool. You heard me talk about the teaching practices of reflection and documentation. We have provided this tool for educators to do just that. We recommend this is used on a weekly basis where educators can think about the week that they just did, the learning experiences that they engaged in with children, and then be able to use this to plan for the next set of learning experiences, or even for shifting to a different exploration. I would like to show you some examples of an educator using this. On the right-hand side, this is an educator using it individually. And on the left-hand side, that upper picture is a teaching team that decided to do it together. And they do this on a weekly basis in order, again, to plan for the next steps. Again, talking about documentation and sharing back the learning with children so that they can see the process of moving through a learning experience and through an exploration. This is one way that an educator has decided to do that, and she posts this in the classroom. There are multiple ways of documenting learning, and this is just one example that I'd like to share with you today. I would like to point out that there is a difference between documentation to share the learning process back with children and families and documentation for assessment, right? What we're talking about and we encourage is the documentation to share back the learning process, not to negate the documentation needed for assessment, because we all know that that is extremely important. I'd also like to share with you some of these images of the welcoming and reunion invitations that I mentioned on the learning experiences that were put out in the hallway of one of our partnering programs. These are just two of the pictures that this particular program shared. They have also done some of the other welcoming and reunion, where, as you heard in the video, the teacher shared that they have seen so much more family engagement as a result of putting these simple questions and invitations out for families to engage in at welcoming and reunion. As we wrap up today, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. Just a few quotes from some of our educators that have piloted this curriculum during its creation. We had 27 classrooms that piloted this curriculum. And so some of their feedback has been that it has been very helpful. Children have been thrilled to have the opportunity to explore things that they may not have been able to otherwise. And finally, I would like to take a moment to thank our 5 partnering programs here on the screen who were part of the co-creation as well as the piloting of this curriculum during its creation, gave us a lot of feedback to be sure that we were meeting their needs, to be able to have a resource that they could go in, use effectively, and see results with their children and families. And I'd also like to thank the LEGO Foundation for their generous partnership in this project. Finally, join us for part 2. This is a 5-part series. And so part 2 will be Unveiling Learning, the Power of Exploration, where we will take a deep dive into each of the 5 explorations and talk a little bit more about those big questions and some of the learning experiences, as well as some of the literature that is associated with each exploration. That will be happening on July 11th at 6:30 p.m. Please be on the lookout for the link for that registration, and we hope to see you there. And finally, here is the QR code that will take you to download Learning Through Exploration, a play-based toddler curriculum. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again. And please note that this has been recorded and will be posted, as well as any questions that any of you have put in the Q&A. We here at Neighborhood Villages will be compiling those and creating a frequently asked questions section on our website. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you on our next webinar. Have a wonderful day.